All right, y'all. Thank you very much for your patience as we worked out those technical issues. To be honest, 55 minutes is a long time to fill, so it's okay by me. All right, so just to introduce you guys a little bit, guys and ladies, introduce you to myself. My name is Daniel Kelly. I am the lead instructor over at Vue School. Just by show of hands, is anybody in here familiar with Vue School? Pretty much everybody? Okay, cool. Awesome. So we do a lot of Vue-centered content, obviously. We have advanced courses and more basic courses for people looking to just start with Vue, and even some more advanced courses for those who already know the basics. But before I joined on at Vue School, I was a full-stack developer. I worked with technologies like Laravel and PHP and the back end. Any Laravel developers in here? One? Awesome. Okay. And then, of course, Vue.js on the front end. Just curiosity question, any WordPress developers in here? A long time ago. Okay. All right. Cool. I did a little bit of that as well. And then I'm just from the next state over. My family's back in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. This was a short little drive for me, but happy to be in here in Atlanta with all of you. My daughter just this year started playing softball, and she is absolutely terrible, and it's so much fun to see. So hopefully she doesn't see this presentation ever and hear me say that, but a lot of fun to do with her this year. I got to be her coach, and I was just speaking in a VueConf Germany a few weeks ago, and on the stage there, I told them, hey, this is a really cool opportunity, but to be honest, coaching my daughter's softball team is really like the highlight of my year. So, so that's just a little bit about myself. All right, so now let's talk a little bit about migrating from Vue CLI to Vite. By another show of hands, who in here currently has a project that is running with Vue CLI? Anybody? Okay, yeah, that was kind of expected. How many of you guys have moved a Vue CLI project to Vite yet? Awesome, awesome. Okay, so here's the deal. I do education full-time, and I get a lot of opportunity to play with the latest and greatest cool things. I don't get as much opportunity to get into some of the larger applications of scale and do things like migrate these big Vue CLI projects over to Vite. So I'm definitely, if any of you guys who have done this already have any insight, there's gonna be a little time at the end of this. I wanna hear more from you all as well, okay? Who all in here is running something now on Vite, like a production app on Vite? Awesome, okay. How much more do you like it? Or maybe that's not a good question. Is it worth it? Yes. Okay. Absolutely. Okay. So for those of you who aren't doing it yet, this is their testimony, right? It's really cool. It really is. So let's first off look at the question, what is Vite? Okay. According to the Vite website, it is the next generation of front-end tooling, and it really aims to make your development experience leaner and faster. And of course, who doesn't like faster, right? But it's not just about the speed. Let's take a look at it this way. In the current state of development, if you are still using Vue CLI, you get into work and you boot up your development server, and you're ready to just start hacking away like a madman, knocking out tasks, doing Jira bugs, whatever thing it is, right? And this is really how you want things to look. You just want to get going. But unfortunately, a lot of times with Vue CLI, what happens is it takes 10, 20 seconds for things to start booting up. You get distracted. You go off, start checking some things on Twitter, check some emails, and then depending on the size of the application, you come back later, and then you're ready to get going. Now, this is okay, but the real loss in productivity comes here not just from having to wait, but from having your flow of concentration disrupted, right? This is, maybe it's just me, but I can be a bit ADD, right? And if I can't just sit down, by the way, if anybody has ever used the Pomodoro technique before, super, super great way to help you focus, okay? And I hate to have my seconds in my Pomodoro time eaten up by waiting for something, right? So this is exactly the problem that Vite was created to solve, to help things move more quickly and to help keep you in that flow state where you can work without distraction, okay? So we have Vite here coming to the rescue. So with Vite, we're talking about dev server start times in the milliseconds as opposed to the seconds, and we're talking about hot module replacement that's essentially instant. In fact, I've seen some people turn on their auto-saving for Visual Studio Code, like you don't have to save the file, right? You can just type and it saves in the background or whatever. And it's kind of cool because it makes, if you put your browser up beside VS Code and working this way, it makes it like this instant feedback loop. Now, for me, that's a little too much because a lot of times when I'm typing, I'm not done typing yet, right? So it causes errors in the meantime. I still like to have the save available, but it's still, as soon as I hit Command S, I can see that feedback in the browser. All right, so how is Vite able to do this? Well, one way is because it supports loading your JavaScript via native ES modules. The way the browsers are nowadays, the state of our current browser systems and browsers out there, we can ship JavaScript directly to the browser. After using Webpack and all these build tools for so long, it kind of seems like a novel idea. Just ship JavaScript to the browser, but this is exactly how Vite makes things more fast, okay? Besides that, it also uses a Go-based bundler, so for code that is not already ready for the browser, things like TypeScript, things like your Vue single file components that the browser has no idea what to do with, you still have to compile those files in some way, right? So ESBuild is a Go-based JavaScript bundler that is so much faster than all of these other popular options you have out there. So this is just a screenshot from ESBuild's website, and you can see 0.33 seconds here for ESBuild in terms of bundling whatever their benchmarking application was. I don't know exactly what it was, but you can see all the competitors are nowhere close, okay? So these are the two main ways that Vite makes things faster. By the way, I'm not going to get too far into how Vite works under the hood in this presentation. It's not really the point of this presentation. But if you are interested in learning more about Vite, then I suggest you check out this talk. It was given by my colleague Alex Kiriakidis over at Vue.js London about a year ago now. But it's a really great talk on diving into Vite. And we also have a course over at Vue School if you're interested in learning to see, what are all the different syntaxes for working with Vite. It's stuff you're probably already familiar with, right? Like importing styles and things like this. But we have a complete course on the actual practical application of using Vite in the day-to-day over at Vue School. It's called Rapid Development with Vite, and I would definitely suggest checking it out. All right. So how do we then migrate from Vue CLI to Vite? If you're convinced at this point, it's worth it, the speed, the mental flow states you're going to get are worth the effort, how do we actually go about doing it? Well, to begin with, let me share with you kind of how I came to these 9 steps we're going to see in just a moment. Because as I mentioned before, right now, full-time, where I spend most of my time is in education, okay? It is in content creation. And so I'm not necessarily migrating these big, huge apps that some of you guys probably have to deal with. So this was my process. First, I created a brand new Vue CLI project, okay? That's Vue create, whatever. And then I had a brand new Vue CLI project on my machine. Then I created a brand new Vite project that was npm init Vite, I think, is the command to do that. And then I just compared the differences between those two projects, okay? So obviously we're talking about projects where you don't have a lot of custom Webpack stuff going on, okay? We're talking about projects where you don't have a lot of third-party dependencies already in there, okay? So I don't expect that the 9 steps that I'm going to share with you in this talk is going to necessarily get your project 100% of the way from Vue CLI to Vite. But I've had good feedback. This talk is based on a blog post. It's also based on a section of our Vite video course that we have in Vue School. I've gotten good feedback in both of those areas that this process has helped people and got a lot of people most of the way there. So it's better to start out with like 70 to 80% of things done than to start at square zero. But I did just want to let you guys know this isn't going to necessarily cover every use case, right? And there's going to maybe be some more complicated things that you have to deal with. But these are the basics. Okay. Also, I don't want you to look at these steps, obviously, as something you have to memorize going away from this talk. Who wants to memorize migration steps? What I want you to really take away is how simple the process really is, and I want it to take your fear level down of moving your Vue CLI project over to Vite. I wanted to make it something that's more approachable for you, because as a number of these different people who have raised their hands can testify to, I think it really is worth the payoff in the end, okay? All right. So step number 1 is to start updating your dependencies. So here we have a few dependencies that are very specific to Vue CLI. That is the Vue CLI plugin for Babel, the plugin for ESLint, and the CLI service itself there on line 14. So we can just get rid of those dependencies altogether. And I don't know about you, but something always feels nice about being able to delete things from your project, right? So this might be a nice feel-good kind of step. All right. The next dependency we want to take a look at is the Sass loader. So when you're working with Webpack, you have to have what for your CSS? Loaders, right? Always got to have loaders to get your not actual CSS thing over to CSS, right? Well, in Vite, you don't have to have any of these loaders. Vite supports the most popular CSS preprocessors out of the box. Okay, so we can just remove the Sass loader altogether here. And by the way, this applies to not just Sass, but your other preprocessors as well. When I was setting up this initial Vue CLI project, I just chose a few different options that I thought were common to a lot of people. Okay. Now the Sass dependency itself, you do have to leave that installed. Okay, with Vite, in order to support a different CSS preprocessor, all you have to do is install the actual preprocessor. Okay, there's no loader required. Then we can take the Vue template compiler that is responsible for compiling your single file components, and we can remove that. You'll see what it's replaced with in just a moment for Vite. Okay. And then we install Vite itself, okay? This is the wonderful, magical part where we get to integrate our new technology. Okay, so we install Vite, and if you are working with Vue 2, after you install Vite, you'll want to install the Vite plugin. This is a community main plugin for Vue 2, okay? Now, I know a lot of you who are coming from Vue CLI projects, this is probably the case for you, right? Who is still running on Vue 2? I'm just curious, show of hands. Okay, wow, that's actually more than I expected. That makes a lot of sense for some course things I need to work on. Okay, so cool. So still running on Vue 2, you'll want to install this community plugin, okay? Now, the official Vue plugin for Vite is at vite.js/plugin-vue. This is what you'll want to install if you're working on a new Vue 3 project. Okay. After you have those things installed, you can run npm prune because we did manually alter package.json. All right, so that takes care of step number 1. Step number 2 is to be okay with only providing support for the most modern browsers. This is going to keep things as lean and as fast as possible. And as you can see based on this graph, this is actually feasible nowadays, right? In fact, IE 11, can I get my numbers right? It's not really a thing we have to support anymore, right? So this is a happy time in the days of development. Man, IE6 was a bane to a lot of people's existence for a very long time. This is the current state of our browsers. So this is really actually possible. Okay, if you do need support for legacy browsers for one reason or another, there is a plugin, an official plugin provided by Vite in order to support that. Okay, so practically speaking, what does this mean? For only providing support for modern browsers, what are we actually having to do to the code? Well, for the most part, what this really means is we can get rid of all the babel. Okay, so I can delete babel.config.js. Inside of package.json, I can remove the ESLint plugin for Babel. Inside of .eslint.rc.js, I can also update my parser options and remove that Babel ESLint plugin there. All right. While we're in here, by the way, let's also take the node environment and let's switch that to an ES 2021. And maybe I need to update the slide. I guess at this point it should probably be ES 22 or whatever the latest is now. But in Vite, we're working in this, this ES6 environment. We're not working in a node environment. So a lot of times when you'd use things like require in your Vue CLI projects, now you're importing things with that import syntax that's for modules with ES6, okay? And I don't know about you, but if I'm perfectly honest, all this common JS, AMD, ES6 crap confuses the heck out of me, okay? Yes. And as an educator, sometimes I feel like I should know that stuff better, but it really just confuses me. And so if you're providing this kind of configuration for your for ESLint, it's really going to help you not have to think about some of these things. So I think this is a really important step, okay? Letting your IDE have to think about some of these things as opposed to that being on you. All right, next, in order to actually support these configurations for ESLint, we need to install the latest version of ESLint, that is ESLint 8, as well as the ESLint plugin Vue that is compatible with ESLint 8. Okay, and then we'll run npm prune again. Awesome. So for step number 3, this is where we get to start configuring Vite. So the file that is used for that is called vite.config.js. And I just copied this file from the newly created Vite project that I initialized and copied it over into my Vue CLI project. Okay, as you can see there on line 4, we are importing Vue from that Vite.js plugin Vue package. And if you're using Vue 2, that'll look just a little different. Notice it's not just the import name itself. Okay, so back here, this is Vue 3. This is Vue 2, okay? Notice the way they export things is just a little bit differently. So the Vue 2 plugin has a create Vue plugin function, and yeah, it's just named a little bit differently. So do be aware of that. And then we register the plugin there on line 8. Awesome. So another piece that you'll have to take care of here is setting up your aliases to work with Vite. So in Vue CLI, you had the @import alias that was an alias to the source directory, right? In Vite, since Vite is a framework agnostic tool, it doesn't have this convention set for us out of the box. And so in order to provide the convention, it's only a couple lines. You use the resolve.alias option for vite.config, and you just point it to your source directory, okay? Now there's a little magic happening here with file URL to path and all this, but it's really not too difficult to figure out. and you can actually just copy this from a newly created Vue project. When I did this, I did npm init Vite, right? But if you were doing with the create Vue tool that's available now, you do npm init Vue at 3, and you get Vite set up out of the box, and you get this file to URL path thing setting up the aliases for you. Okay. All right, step number 4 is to move the index.html file. Inside of Vue CLI, this lives in your public directory. Inside of Vite, this lives in the root of the project. Okay. Now the index.html file itself will require a few changes. First, where we're using these different these little placeholder things where you got HTML webpack plugin.options.title. I really didn't see a really good reason to try to recreate this in Vite, so I just replaced this with some hard-coded stuff. Yeah, I mean, you have to touch it once, right? So then do the same thing here for base URL. We can just remove that altogether, and now we're just pointing things to the root of our project, okay? And this is the most important step. There on line 16, where the built files are automatically injected in Vue CLI, that no longer happens in Vite. Instead, you have to import the files that you actually want to be your starting place. Or if you wanted to include multiple applications within this page, you could do that too, right? But this is the typical setup, okay? So notice that we have type equals module there. This is that ES module syntax that we can take advantage of because of the state of modern browsers, okay? All right, so we have /source/main.js. Awesome. So for step number 5, we should update the scripts in our package.json file. So there are several different scripts here. One is for serving your application locally for development purposes, okay? One is for building the application for production, and then finally you have a linting script, okay? And notice these are all run by Vue CLI service. So with Vite, we swap that out to be run by Vite instead. Notice though, there on line 6, we've got a dev command set up. So if you're switching between Vue CLI and Vite, the new kind of convention for your dev server is npm run dev, not npm run serve. I know that's caught a couple of my students off guard before. And that's just the Vite command. With build, you're running a Vite build. With serve, so the convention for Vite now is a different thing for serve. So it runs Vite preview. Can anybody here tell me what Vite preview does? Anybody who's used it yet? Yes, sir.
Doesn't it build it for production and then serve it as it would in the production server instead of the dev server?
Yes, exactly right. I don't think it actually completes the build step, but once you have built it, you can run the built files with this, yes. So this just allows you to see your actual production app. Okay, and then we can also add in the lint step that we had before. Now, Vite doesn't have a specific command for this. You'll kind of have to manually do this with ESLint directly, but it's fairly straightforward, and you can copy this once again from any new project that's created with npm init Vue at 3, and you choose ESLint from the details. Okay. Step number 6 is to update all of your environment variables. Okay, thankfully, the naming convention, since both of these projects were created by Evan, the naming conventions for these files remain the same, okay? So you've got your .env, which is loaded in all cases. You got your .env.local, which is loaded in all cases, but it is ignored by default in your .getignore file. You have your .env.mode, which is only loaded in that specific mode, test or production or whatever. And then you have .env.mode.local, which is only loaded in that specific mode, but it's ignored by get, okay? All these same conventions apply. They carry over directly. So basically your .env files, you can leave them the same, except that the way you access those environment variables is now changed. Remember, now we're living in ES6 land, and we're no longer living in Node land, right? So before in Vue CLI, it was process.env.base_URL. This is if you had ViewRouter installed, okay? But now that's going to change to import.meta.env base URL. So fairly straightforward swap over there. All your process.envs become import.meta.envs. Okay. All right. The one other thing that's going to change here, though, is inside the actual .env files. Vue CLI provided this nice little kind of safety feature where if you wanted a .env variable to be exposed to the browser, you had to prefix it with view_app_. And this just kind of made you think, okay, I really know what I'm doing here. Because for those people like me and this guy over here who worked with Laravel, when you had a .env file, that meant it was secure for the most part, right? There was no exposing it to the browser unless you printed it in your HTML, which, you know, not going to go there. May have done that in my day, but not the point. This is Vue CLI getting your back and making you understand that, hey, this is going to be exposed to the end user. Make sure you know what you're doing. Vite has the same exact safety feature, but it's just named differently. Okay, so you'll replace Vue app with Vite. All right, step number 7 is to add the .vue extension to all of your single file components. I know this was not common. You could definitely do it in Vue CLI, but this was not common. A lot of people just left the extension off. But in Vite, it is absolutely necessary that you do this. Otherwise, the code just won't work. The import won't be found, okay? And it's suggested, well, the reason that Vite does it this way is because providing those file extensions is supposed to kind of be a little bit more future-proofing in terms of working with your IDEs and making sure your IDEs understand those imports and can be smarter about those imports, okay? Now, if you really want to leave the .vue extension off, you can do that, but you have to set this setting first. So over in resolve.extensions in your vite.config file, you would add .vue to an array of extensions to automatically, append to the end. Okay. Now do notice here that you do have to provide all the others though as well. This option isn't merged with the defaults; it overrides the defaults. So that's one kind of thing about this one. You'd have to copy and paste it from somewhere, right? But this is not necessarily recommended because of the IDE thing I mentioned a moment ago. All right, step number 8 is to clean up your magic comments. So inside of Vue CLI with Webpack, you would have to create these magic comments in order to name your chunk names to be able to better debug your chunks and see what chunk was what. So it wasn't just this crazy hash, right? You could actually tell a little bit more what was going on. Well, in Vite, this automatically happens for us. So you don't have to provide those magic comments any longer. Vite will create the file with the file name in it, and then it will still just append the hash there on the end, okay? All right, and so after those 8 steps, you have really completed the process, and you're on the way to an improved developer experience. Now, as I mentioned a moment ago, this is a brand new Vue CLI project to a brand new Vite project, right? So there are some things that I've certainly left out. Let me just make quick mention of a couple of those things. One is going to be a special Webpack configuration. So if you're doing something special with Webpack, you're going to have to spend a little bit more time on that, okay? If you've got some circular dependencies that Webpack was able to handle with its magic, I just learned this literally 30 minutes ago in the hallway, and it's a really good tip, but if you have any of these circular dependencies, Vite's not going to be able to handle that very well, okay? So those are 2 things to be on the lookout for. I did want to share with you guys, just real quickly, some of the courses that we have kind of related to this topic, or help you expand even more beyond Vite. So we do have some courses over at Vue School on TypeScript with Vue.js 3. I really got the opportunity I've used TypeScript in production projects once before I joined Vue School, but to be honest, hadn't really touched it since then. And when I was working on this course and our TypeScript fundamentals course, it really gave me a brand new appreciation for working with TypeScript in Vue. It's really cool the way you can like type some of your prompts. Who in here uses TypeScript with Vue? A little bit? Okay. To be honest, I barely want to work with vanilla JavaScript anymore after doing some of the stuff with TypeScript. Like, just the way your IDE can give you a list of autocomplete options that is super specific, like when you're putting in a prop, it's so cool. I definitely suggest checking out this course if you don't know what I just said. All right. We also have a course on Pina for global state management. Another show of hands, who all is using Pina yet? Just one. Who all wants to use Pina? Okay, all right, that's definitely more expected. So we have an awesome course dedicated to that as well. And then finally, we have a course that has just been released this last week. We'll have another episode or a few more lessons of it released Thursday of this week called Rapid Testing with Vitest. So Vitest is a no configuration testing framework for working with Vite. So essentially, you download the package, and you can start testing your Vite-powered applications without having to do a bunch of config work. Okay, and it's super fast, and the feedback is in real time. Kind of that same mentality that Vite provides. Okay, Anthony Fu is teaching this course, who is the creator of Vitest, and you could probably name like 5 other things off the top of your head that he's contributed to the ecosystem. So if you're interested in Vitest, definitely check that out. And we have some other really great courses as well. We've got a Nuxt.js fundamentals course that I've just completed. Nuxt 3, guys, is super cool. Like the TypeScript support alone and being able to, that autocomplete stuff again in my IDE, I love it so much. But some of the stuff they're doing with like automating type generation for like different API endpoints and stuff, it's really cool. It's really cool. So I suggest you check out Nuxt 3 if you aren't familiar with it already. And by the way, I'm going to skip ahead just a little bit. Nuxt Nation isn't just a couple weeks. So if you're interested in Nuxt 3 specifically, they have given a release date for Nuxt 3 on their website. It says November 16th. Nuxt Nation starts November 16th. So I'm super hopeful here that that's going to be released there at Nuxt Nation. But a lot going on in the Nuxt world. We also offer a number of different workshops over at Vue School, where I'll get on a Zoom call, essentially a little Zoom call with folks, and I can help provide training for teams, or we even have a few workshops that are kind of first come, first served, where individuals can sign up, and this is typically in correspondence or in relation to our different conferences that we put on. So Nuxt Nation, Vue.js Nation, you can sign up for some of those workshops there. All right? All right, I won't bore y'all with too many Vue School things, but I definitely think there is some value there, guys. To be perfectly honest, I mean, like I get to make a lot of these courses, and so I am definitely biased, right? But some of the things I've learned just making the courses really excites me. So I think there is definitely some value there. All right, so thank you all very much for your time. I do want to, let's see, we started this gig at, well, it's supposed to start at 10:30, right? We got 10 more minutes. I did want to, you guys who said you have migrated something, is there something in particular that you remember being painful? I want to hear about it. Yes, sir.
Not so much painful, but something that...
What? Introduce yourself.
Austin Gill.
All right, Austin Gill. He has migrated Vue CLI to Vite. All right.
Yeah, I did that. There was something, not so much painful, but something that was a feature I couldn't figure out is if it's still supported from the Webpack to roll up or Vite migration.
Yeah.
That is, if you go back on your slide to the lazy loading modules,
Okay.
there's a hash value for you.
Yeah.
In Webpack, you could provide a chunk name for the output file that you wanted.
Yep.
And one of the benefits there is you can actually use the same chunk name for multiple imports, such that you could essentially bundle those and reduce the number of HTTP requests that would be needed if you have several components that are going to be used in succession.
Interesting. Okay.
I don't know if there's a way to do that where you kind of describe a lazy load component that can also be merged with another chunk.
Yeah, I don't know if there is a way either. I think probably what you would end up doing is creating a single module out of them by importing them into a single module and then lazy loading that one. Yeah. Is that possible in your use case? Or?
So the thing is, you would generally have multiple modules. So let's say you have a flow with like multiple pages.
Yeah.
But you know if someone is a user, on the home page you probably don't want to load that flow because it's meant to be used. But if a user lands on the first page of this flow and you know that they're going to go to multiple pages,
I see.
you want all of those to be lazy loaded in one chunk. So
Interesting.
that you can kind of just eat the network request.
I got you. Okay.
So I don't know. It doesn't seem like there's a way.
Does anybody have a solution to that? Okay. Me neither. Cool. Interesting use case there. By the way, Nuxt has this cool. It's not quite the same, but it's trying to it's trying to do it's trying to be the same kind of solution, but not the exact same solution, where it can like lazy load your different chunks when it sees a link, like a Nuxt link in your viewport, which is pretty cool. Totally off topic. Does anybody else who did the migration, is there anything you guys want to mention? Awesome. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I guess another thing to mention is did you include the new router migration? I think you didn't like that.
No, I didn't specifically address that. Let's see what changes about ViewRouter. Do you have something in mind?
Yeah.
Okay.
ViewRouter, before you had like a class instantiation to create a router.
Okay.
And now it's different. The import syntax is different, and it's a function that you returns the router, sort of similar to how before you had instantiated a new view app, and now you have create app.
Yep.
Or whatever it's called.
Yep, absolutely. And I think that's a real difference between like ViewRouter 3 and ViewRouter 4, right? Like if you're still using ViewRouter 3 in your V2 app and you wanted to use Vite, I think that wouldn't change, right? I think. Anyways, yeah, if you go to the ViewRouter 4 docs, you can see you import create ViewRouter instead of router plugin or whatever it was. Yeah. Austin, yes, sir. By the way,
I read a lot about this, and it's very relevant. Did you cover SAS files?
yes, you came in here late, didn't you, Austin? Yeah, we won't go over that again, but yes, you can. I'll share the slides with you for sure, man. Okay. At this point, are there any other questions or comments about Vue CLI or Vite? Awesome. All right, guys. That is it for my talk. I really enjoyed being here with you, and definitely hit me up. I think I'm a pretty cool guy, and I want to get to know some of you guys. So definitely hit me up in the lobby and stuff, and let's talk about Vue or Nuxt or whatever. All right. Thanks, guys.